All right, let's jump into a deep dive on rural living. We're going to be checking out this YouTube video by Encore Ray. It's called How to Live a Simple Life, Discover the Joys of Rural Living. I think it's a pretty cool look into like a totally different lifestyle.
Yeah, I think it is, So for a lot of people, escaping to the country is like this dream, but they don't always think about what it really means.
Totally. So Encore Ray starts his day with this like sunrise meditation thing overlooking his farm.
Oh, wow.
And it's beautiful, right? Rolling hills, cows grazing, and the sky's got all these amazing colors. And you know what's interesting? Like, there's actual research that says doing this kind of stuff, like mindfulness in nature, can really help you.
Yeah,
Less stress, clearer thinking, stuff we could all use, right?
definitely. I mean, we're not just talking about pretty views here.
Mhm.
Studies show that if you combine mindfulness with nature, it like boosts the good stuff.
Right,
Makes you wonder how much our surroundings really affect us, doesn't it?
for sure. And speaking of surroundings, Encore Ray has a unique way of managing his livestock. He changes the number of animals he has based on how much grass there is throughout the year.
Oh, that's smart.
So, like in the summer when there's tons of grass, he has more animals. But in the winter, he scales back.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's what sustainable farming's all about, right? He's making sure his animals have enough to eat without, like, hurting the land. Working with nature, not against it.
Makes sense, right? Good for the land, good for him in the long run. Now, this is what really blew my mind. He's got this solar-powered water pump.
Oh, cool.
And it's not some tiny thing, right? It pumps water from a well that's like 44 feet deep, and it powers all his irrigation. Plus, get this, it's silent and crazy efficient.
It's amazing what you can do with a little bit of sunshine and some clever thinking.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes you got to get creative when you don't have the same stuff as in the city. But it makes you think, could this kind of thing work in cities too, for a more sustainable way of living?
That's a really good point. It definitely changes how we think about renewable energy, right? Okay, let's move on to his coffee plantation. Rows and rows of these young coffee plants that smell of coffee blossoms. It's like a dream.
Sounds amazing.
He's actually planning to make it even bigger. He's going to shrink his banana plantation to make space. It seems like he's always figuring out how to use the land best.
Yeah. Even a life like that takes planning and adapting,
Yeah.
balancing what you love with what the land can handle.
Right. And it's not just coffee and bananas. The guy also keeps bees. He's got all kinds of beehives, some old school, some modern. And the honey harvest, wow, jars and jars of the good stuff.
I love that. Beekeeping's such a great example of living sustainably, delicious honey. Plus, it's good for the environment.
Right. And he showed how he harvests the honey. And honestly, it's kind of funny watching him deal with those bees buzzing around. You can tell he really likes them, though.
It's good to find the humor in it, especially when things get tough. Life's got to have some joy and wonder in it.
Absolutely. But it's not all pretty landscapes and honey, right? He also showed how he processes cassava to make this local dish called cuckoo.
Oh, interesting.
It's simple, just drying it in the sun, but it shows how resourceful he is and how connected he is to like traditional ways of eating.
Yeah, like it's whole farm to table idea, right?
Yeah.
Except this is like tree to table.
Huh. Exactly. And he even took us foraging. We went with him to find ganja, which is like a type of plantain, and sugarcane. It's like a treasure hunt for delicious natural food.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. That connection to the land, finding food right from nature, we've kind of lost that.
For sure. It's a reminder that there's so much out there if we just know where to look.
So true. He really makes you appreciate those simple things. Okay, so the day's ending, and we see him bringing his cows and geese back home. Simple, but it shows how much responsibility comes with taking care of animals.
It's definitely a different pace of life.
Hmm.
Being in tune with the animals, the rhythm of the day. It's like a quiet kind of purpose.
We often romanticize that kind of life, but there's so much hard work and dedication behind it.
Absolutely. It's not just about pretty pictures. It's about being connected to the land and taking care of it.
So as we leave Encore Ray enjoying his evening tea, reflecting on the day, it makes you wonder, could we trade our busy city lives for this? But hey, we're not done yet. We'll be back to explore more of Encore Ray's world and see what else we can learn about rural living.
Welcome back to our deep dive into rural living. Spending time with Encore Ray, even if it's just through a video, has been really eye-opening.
What stood out to you the most so far?
Honestly, it's that mix of like old ways and new tech.
Oh, yeah.
He's drying cassava in the sun, but then he's got that super efficient solar-powered irrigation system.
It is pretty cool how he brings those two things together. It kind of breaks that stereotype that rural living is all about going back in time.
Exactly. It's more about choosing what works best,
Hmm.
right, for your life and the environment. Seeing him process that cassava really got me thinking.
It's so simple, but it shows something we've kind of lost touch with.
You mean that connection to where our food actually comes from?
Yeah, he's taking something from the earth and turning it into food. It's a whole different level of, I don't know, involvement with what we eat.
For sure. And it's not just about food, right?
Yeah.
Think about that solar pump. He had to figure out how to design and install that whole thing himself.
Oh, yeah. That was amazing.
It's proof that sometimes limitations can spark some serious innovation.
Right.
When you don't have all the same stuff as in the city, you got to get creative. You learn to fix things, adapt, rely on your own skills.
It makes you wonder, like, what skills have we lost by depending on other people for everything?
There's definitely something powerful about being able to handle things yourself.
Encore Ray also talked about how important it is to pay attention to the weather, for planting and harvesting. It's that deep understanding of nature that I find so fascinating.
He's definitely tuned into those natural rhythms, way more than most of us are. Watching the seasons, knowing what the land can do, working with it.
It's like a reminder that we're part of nature, not separate from it. Our actions have an impact.
And when we work with nature, it works out better for everyone.
It's a more, I don't know, holistic way of looking at things.
I think so, yeah. It's about seeing how everything's connected. With all the hard work, there's also this feeling of peace in Encore Ray's life.
Yeah, you can really see it.
I think that comes from being connected to the land and to a slower pace of life.
Yeah.
He's not dealing with all the craziness we have in the city. There's a calmness about him that's really interesting.
It makes you think maybe we've given up some of that peace in exchange for all our progress and convenience.
That's something to think about. Maybe there's something to be said for slowing down, making things simpler, reconnecting with nature.
Right. Even if we can't all live in the countryside, maybe we can bring some of that into our lives.
Totally. Like growing some herbs, shopping at farmers markets, just spending more time outside.
Exactly. It's about those small steps to reconnect with nature, to appreciate the simple things.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot in this part, from sustainable farming to how resourceful you have to be in rural life. It's a totally different way of living.
It is, yeah. But our deep dive's not over yet. We'll be back to wrap things up and talk about what we can learn from Encore Ray's experience.
And we're back for our final look at rural living with Encore Ray. Man, this has been a cool journey, wouldn't you say?
It really has. We've seen so much, sunrise meditations, beekeeping, even making food from scratch. It's a whole different world.
I'm living this feeling pretty inspired, honestly. How about you? What really stuck with you from all this?
One thing that keeps coming back to me is self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
Encore Ray shows us it's possible to live without being totally reliant on, systems and stuff.
Right.
He grows his own food, gets his own energy, even fixes his own things.
It's like he's taken back control, in a way. We're so used to convenience that we forget how satisfying it is to do things ourselves.
I know, right? And it's not just the skills, it's the attitude, that resourcefulness,
Yeah.
thinking outside the box and finding solutions when things get tough.
And you see that in everything he does, like how he manages the animals, how he deals with the changing seasons. It's all about watching, learning, and adapting.
And that connection to nature is so key. He's not just in the countryside. He's living as part of it.
Yeah, you can really tell.
Understanding the land, knowing its limits, working with it.
It's tempting to romanticize this whole rural life thing, but I think Encore Ray gave us a real picture. The good and the bad.
Absolutely.
It's not always perfect, but there's beauty in the simplicity,
Yeah.
the connection to nature, the slower pace.
The big takeaway for me, it's not that we all need to move to the country.
Right.
It's about finding inspiration in this way of life, bringing some of it into our own lives wherever we are.
Exactly. Even small things, right? Growing some herbs, shopping at local farms, spending time outdoors.
Yeah.
It's all about that connection with nature, getting back to those simple joys.
And maybe asking ourselves what really matters. What kind of life do we want to build? How can we find more balance, more meaning in our everyday lives?
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I gotta say, check out Encore Ray's YouTube channel. He's got tons of knowledge to share for anyone into sustainable living, rural life, or just seeing the world differently.
It's a good reminder that there are so many ways to live a good life. And sometimes the most inspiring paths are the ones less traveled.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic to explore. Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.